Welcome to this week's Powerback episode. Just in case you're new around here, Powerback episodes are like short micro coaching sessions with yours truly. We get hyper focused on a very specific topic. We talk about the energies, we talk about the feelings, and then I always give you grounded, practical ways to actually do something with it. Because look, we can feel all fucking day long, but if we're not taking action to back up the feeling, then we're going to keep perpetuating in the same cycle now, aren't we? In today's Powerback episode, I'm going to give you 5 habits to help you grow your business. Now, look, if you're coming here looking for how to grow your email or how to increase your following on social media, this is not that episode. But if you want to sink your teeth into some like really tangible ways for you to shift habits that help you grow your business, then stick around. Before we dig into that, though, I want to let you know that tomorrow is the final day to register for the Mindfuckery workshop. You know, one of the things that I hear the most is like, well, how, Laura, how do I change my mindset? How do I change my limiting beliefs? How do I change my tendencies? How do I even know if I'm resisting something? Well, my friend, we're going to cover all of that in the Mindfuckery workshop. And not only are we going to cover it, but we're actually going to work through those things together so that by the end of the workshop, which is 5 days, you're not only going to have the tools to help you shift your mindset, but you're going to have the know-how so that you can implement it moving forward. To me, this is like the foundational shit that changes everything, because it's really hard to build your empire when you keep talking shit to yourself. The mind is actually a really incredible tool that grows and expands and fires and rewires all of the time. And when used in your favor, your brain is going to help propel you forward. It would be my absolute honor to guide you through this process. So again, the Mindfuckery workshop registration closes on the 21st at 5:00 Eastern Standard Time. And side note, if you can't make the live calls, that's okay. So to my friends on the other side of the planet, hello to everyone in Australia, Finland, Argentina, the UK. I see you and I hear you. If you can't make the live calls, I'm going to record every single one of them and send them out at the end of each day. All you got to do is go to LauraAura.com/learn and register today. All right, let's shift into today's Powerback content, which are the 5 habits that I recommend starting to implement to really help not only yourself, but your business grow. Because before you're a business owner, you're a human. And as a human, you have thoughts and feelings and desires and emotions and backstories and habits and all of these things that go into making you who you are. And just so you know, when you start a business, those things don't go away. If anything, they get challenged, they get amplified, they get seen, and they get heard. And so when I'm looking at growing the business, I'm also looking at growing yourself. These tips, these suggestions are simply that. And I also want to preface this that do you need to do all 5 things today? No, these are merely suggestions for you to take, to start to implement, to see what works for you and what doesn't, to find your own flavor of it. Because one of my biggest fucking pet peeves in the world is how when people teach you how to do things their way, and while there can be systems or processes or frameworks that absolutely can guide, you are you at the end of the day, and someone else is someone else. And there are so many different ingredients that go into the process and the success of all of these different things. So while what I'm about to share with you are specific things, they're not specific ways to do the things, because the way that I do things are likely very different than the way you do them. But I can make some suggestions on the framework, on the direction of the how, because I know you love the how, to help you start building your own aligned healthy habits that are then going to in turn help you grow your business. So let's get into it. I got to get cross-legged here up in my chair because this is some nitty-gritty stuff. If you are able, this is a great episode to jot down some notes. And if not, that's okay. This is a short and sweet episode for you to digest once and then come back and get your game plan in the next round. All right, number 1. First, foremost, and always is working on your mindset and yourself. And some of you might be thinking like, okay, here we go again. We got to work on the mind and we got to think positive. And all. Okay, we're not going down that road. The road we're going down is the things that you say to yourself really actually fucking matter. It is scientifically proven that the thoughts that play on loop and repeat in your mind have an actual physical impact on your body. They have an impact on your ability to move forward, to be successful, and to be happy. And I can tell you right now that your aligned self, your successful self, is not sitting around kicking her own ass. Now, at all levels of life and business, there is an inner dialogue, right? The what ifs and the I can'ts and how am I gonna and all those. It's a natural part of being a human. Where it becomes a challenge is when you start to believe it. And when you start to believe it, that's where your actions are formed from. In other words, if you believe that you can't do something, guess what you're likely not taking action on? What you think to be true is likely one of the things that's stopping you from having all of the peace, happiness, and success that you know that you're capable of having. And when you get very real and honest with yourself, I like to call this getting to know your own personal flavor of bullshit. And when you get very real and honest with yourself about this, you realize just how quickly you can shift what's going on up here and how that starts to change everything in front of you. I've developed a process. It's called the Powerback process to help you walk through shifting this. Just in case you didn't catch it, it's in Powerback episode 161. So 100% recommend going back and listening to that. And shameless plug, this is also what we're going to be covering in the Mindfuckery workshop next week. So if you're like, yeah, I really need some guidance on how to do this, how to shift my mind and take control back of my thoughts, register for the class. It literally is the how. All right. Number 2 is learning to trust yourself. When you're not trusting yourself, you're going off on a whim. You're believing everybody else before you believe yourself. You are very quick to do what other people are doing, meaning you're easily influenced. And you are likely cutting yourself off from all of the opportunities that are trying to show themselves to you. Trusting yourself means saying yes when it doesn't make sense to anybody else, but there's something about it in you that just feels right. It also means saying no, even when it might look perfect on paper. When everyone's like, you would be fucking nuts to not do this. Why are you not? If it doesn't feel right, it's likely not. Every single one of us has an intuition, a gut feeling, a drop in, a knowing. In episode 66, this is going way back in the archives, literally one of my favorite episodes to date with Sarah Martucci. She talks about the 3 spaces of intuition and how to start to strengthen those areas. And I'll tell you, as a business owner, understanding and hearing and trusting your intuition, it's your guide, right? Like your intuition is your North Star. It's forever leaving you breadcrumbs. I personally believe that it is your higher self saying, hey, this is the direction to go. Are you willing to do it with me? Trusting your intuition can get you out of some wonky shit that, the universe does not want you to go down through. It can lead you to opportunities that you could never sit and plan. It could help you meet the right people on your path or get the idea that's going to take your business and skyrocket it. But you not only have to be willing to listen to it, but you have to be willing to act on it. And that's the secret recipe with trusting your intuition. And it is a muscle. The more you use it, the stronger it gets, the more clear it gets. Quick story, trusting my personal intuition is what helped me to be able to purchase my 3-story commercial building. I was in a different office that I had built from the ground up. It was fucking beautiful. And I fought like hell to leave that space. My pride got in the way. My ego got in the way. I was like, no, this is mine. I built it. I don't want to do this. Meanwhile, shit was getting thrown at me left and right. The universe is like, you're not supposed to be here anymore. I'm like, but I built it. And so one day I was looking around and I was like, Laura, you built this once. You can build it again better. And I released it. I let it go. I said, all right, universe, show me what's next. A few days later, I passed a building in my hometown that I've driven by my entire fucking life. This building was not for sale, but all of a sudden I saw it and I realized that it is the exact style of building that I had sketched out on my vision board years ago. I asked the owner if I could look at it to rent it. And he was like, I don't really want to be a landlord. And I was like, okay. And my intuition was like, fuck no, push, Laura. So I was like, all right, can I see it anyway? He was like, yeah, sure. Why not? Listen, my friends, the second I walked into this building, my body lit up like a Christmas tree. We walked all 3 floors. And when we got to the 3rd floor, my intuition was like, tell him your vision for this building. My initial thought is, this guy already thinks that I'm batshit crazy. I come out of nowhere wanting to look at this building. And it was like this shove in my soul. It was like, tell him your vision. So I laid out the vision for what I want to do with this building. Gave it a couple of days. I emailed him and I said, I know this building is not for sale, but it would be an honor to purchase it and turn it into the entrepreneurial hub that I see and feel in my heart. What do you think? And he was like, yeah, I had been wondering what to do with my building next. I'd been praying on it, and you literally showed up out of nowhere. 6 weeks later, we went to closing, and here we are. All because I trusted my intuition. Sometimes it doesn't make sense. Sometimes all the details are not present up front. And sometimes we have to be willing to lean in and do it. Which leads me to my next tip, which is to take messy action. This is where you are giving yourself permission to do something without knowing all the details. Now, this is not to be skewed with like running around like a chicken with your head cut off while you're on fire, throwing spaghetti at the wall. Okay, no, that's just fucking chaos. What I'm talking about is allowing yourself to take one next step. Even if you don't have every piece of the picture figured out, you don't have every detail, you don't even know the how of like where all this is coming from. And it doesn't matter, because those answers will come as you build momentum. You can sit and map things out all day long, but the majority of the details that you are hungry for come from actually doing. I'll stick with the same story here. So when we decided to buy the building and the owner had said yes, it was like, okay, I have no idea how to buy a fucking commercial building. And where am I going to get the money for this? See, I had said yes and made an offer on a building before I had any of the finances figured out, which is pretty gutsy in its own. But there was just this deep knowing inside of me. I'm like, the finances and the how are going to present themselves. I spoke with a friend who is a realtor who helped us do all the logistics, the paperwork, leaned on other people, asked for help, my friends. I also called my bank and I was like, hey, here's what I want to do. What do we do next? And she was like, this is exciting. Let me walk you through it. Again, leaning on people that know the things that you don't. And once the mortgage got approved, they were like, all right, to go to closing, you need $50,000. And my very first reaction was, okay, I will find $50,000. Now, it's funny because in other circumstances, I feel like I probably would have puked and turned inside out and like reincarnated as a dove. But in this situation, I was just like, okay, that's what I need. This is the dream. This is the vision. I was called to this for a very specific reason. We'll figure it out. And over the course of the next 6 to 8 weeks, I was able to generate an additional $50,000 in my business. We went to closing. I wrote a check for 50 grand and I'm now sitting in our building. This is messy action. I wouldn't have been able to figure out all those details on my own in that time frame. So a lot of messy action is one, asking for help, leaning on people around you, talking to somebody that might be a few steps ahead of you or is more specialized in something than you are. And it also ties back into trust. When it feels like a full body hell yes, the details will work themselves out. And if you start to get any resistance or pushback, that is a sign and a signal to pause and to reevaluate. If you want to learn more about taking messy action, Powerback 160, that is literally the whole episode. All right. Tip number 4 is knowing when it's time to let go of something or delegate it. It's that old saying of just because you can doesn't mean you should. And as you're growing your business and starting to expand and things start to get busier and you're pulled in 100 different directions, it is nearly impossible to get to the level of happiness, of peace and success that you want when you are spread as thin as a fucking pancake. And not like the fluffy buttermilk pancakes. We're talking about like the cheapo ones that you put the water in and it's like paper fucking thin. As you begin to grow, You have got to be willing to let go of some things that no longer work, which could be a system or a process or a tool. It could be team members, people that are already supporting you on your team that may no longer be a good fit. It could be a product or a service. Maybe you've offered something for since like the dawn of day, but every time you think about doing it, it like sucks your soul out of your asshole. The things that you start with in business don't have to be the things that continue on. And I think that's one of the big lessons that I learned as well as I was growing my business is like, just because I started with this doesn't mean I always have to offer it. And oftentimes, the things that you start with are like baby steps or stepping stones that guide you to what really is aligned in the next season. But if you're not willing to let go of stuff that doesn't belong anymore, it's like trying to run a marathon with sandbags strapped to your back. In the same way that growing and expanding, if you're still trying to do all of the things on your own, it's really hard to achieve that level of peace and happiness and success. Now, don't get me wrong. I know solopreneurs who do the majority of the work by themselves, and it does bring them peace and they are enjoying their life as it is. So if that is you, kudos, fantastic. You don't have to change something just because. What really matters the most is the personal check-in. Is this fulfilling me? Do I feel good doing these things? And if you do, and you're making the kind of money that you want, your health is good, and you feel good in your business, then fucking keep doing it. But if you're feeling like you're stuck, you feel like you can't get ahead, you feel like you're stuck on a hamster wheel, you know that there is another level calling you, but you can't seem to get there. This is a really big blinking fucking sign that it is time to either let something go and or to delegate. Delegation is your friend. And I will tell you that up front, it takes time. And that's usually the reason that people don't want to delegate. Two reasons. One, it takes time to do it. And it's like, oh, I could just do it faster myself. So I'll just keep doing it. Well, that keeps you in the hamster wheel, right? But number two is not being willing to let go of it. Chances are this is something that you have done, created, or set up yourself because you're the business owner. So you're super familiar with it. And it's like, oh, can they do it as well as I can? And, how's this going to work out? Well, I'll tell you, if you don't take the time to teach this person, to guide this person and set this person up for success, then it's likely not going to feel right. But if you take the time in the beginning, you guide them, you teach them, you walk it through them, and then you get out of their way, you will free up more time in your life than you ever even knew was possible. And then you can focus on the high level business stuff, on the relationship building, on developing a new product or service, the parts of your business that really need you. If you want to see the tops of the mountains, you've got to be willing to get out of the weeds. All right. Last but not least today, my final tip for you is learn to friend your numbers. I cannot tell you how long in my career as a business owner, I resisted the fuck out of knowing my numbers. Now, a lot of that goes back to childhood trauma and conditioning about finances that I've been actively working to undo and to reprogram for about a decade. But one of the turning points was, I had this story that I'm a creative, so I'm not a numbers person. Well, that totally fucked up a lot of things because I didn't have knowledge of my numbers. I didn't know what was working and what wasn't. It was just like out of sight, out of mind. If I don't look at it, I don't have to understand it. If you're feeling like that right now in your business, first, I hear you. I understand you. I know that it can be scary and different to think about this differently, but I'm also telling you that you will not be able to fully succeed to the level that you know that you're capable of without knowing your numbers. I think one of the limiting beliefs that I had was that it had to be big and complicated. And to this day, I run the majority of my numbers off of an Excel spreadsheet. There's a handful of things that I 100% recommend starting with. And first is knowing how much does it cost you to do business? These are things that you have to purchase, subscriptions, any subcontractors or employees that you have, paying yourself. That actually needs to, let's shift that to the front of the line. If you're not sure how much it costs you to do business, you're always kind of like fighting this invisible fight to make numbers work, even though you're not really sure what you're working with. This, if you haven't done this exercise yet, it'll probably take you, a couple of hours. Okay. Let's block it out. Let's be very realistic. But sit down and go through your receipts, go through your statements, go through all of the different subscriptions that you have and just start to jot down, okay, it cost me this much for this and this much for that, and start to add those things up. That gives you a very real number to work with. And again, include your own salary in this. The other portion then is how much income are you bringing in? Look at your products and your services. How much are you charging? Okay, if it costs you $3,000 a month to do business and you're selling a $100 product, that means you need to sell at least 30 of those products to break even. This can also help you to understand what your goals are financially. And if you're like, okay, I don't want to just break even though, I have a higher goal. Okay, let's define that. What is that goal? If you're like, oh, actually, this is more of a $1,000 product. And if my goal is to make $6,000 a month, my expenses are $3,000 a month. If I sell 6 of these a month, I'm profiting $3,000 every month. You see how these numbers really start to empower you. Instead of being scared of them, start to look at your numbers like an empowering best friend. I know what it costs me to do business. Therefore, I know what I need to bring in to one, break even, but how much additional revenue I need to bring in to meet my goals. That additional revenue gives you the opportunity to purchase new things for the business, to hire more help, to save up for something. Like, it gives you a lot of leverage. But if we don't even know how much it costs us to do business in the first place, it's really hard to know how all of those things are going to work out. So start to friend your numbers. They're not there to fight you. They are not there to beat you up or tell you how small your business is or how not great you're doing. This is not about comparison. Wherever you are today is fine. And if you're just started on getting to know your numbers today, then fantastic. Today gets to be the new floor. Today gets to be the day that you take your power back in your finances and actually start making the kind of money that you know is possible. Because who knows, maybe that $100 product turns into the $1,000 product, turns into the $10,000 product. And now you need to sell one of them every month. Look, my friends, this is where the healthy relationship with understanding your numbers really gets to support you on your journey. These 5 things are things that I've implemented in a lot of different ways in a lot of different chapters of my life and in my career. And it's also the stuff that I teach my coaching clients. And of course, here I'm teaching it to you on the podcast. And I teach it because it works. Again, these are foundational items. We're talking about mastering your mind and shifting the way that you are thinking about yourself. We're talking about trusting your energy and your intuition to make grounded, aligned decisions for yourself and your business. We're talking about taking messy action, working towards something, taking a singular action towards something to unveil all of the rest of the details through the momentum. We're talking about delegating and releasing things that don't work for you anymore because it's just heavy shit that's stopping you. And we're talking about getting to know your numbers because this is the empowering part that lets you look at the numbers and say, okay, here is where I am. This is where I'm starting. Where do I want to go? And how do I get there? These habits, these new tools, these new ways of looking at your business through a different lens is going to help you expand in ways beyond your wildest dreams, because these are the things that help you get out of your own way, that empower you to take aligned action, and that calls in the opportunity that it's literally waiting for you. So I would love to hear from you. I'm on TikTok, Facebook, and Instagram. I'm at that LauraAura. Message me and tell me which one of these that you plan on focusing on first. Because again, do you have to do all of this today or tomorrow or in the next week? Not necessarily. If you feel like you want to and you're ready to take it on, go for it. But pick one, maybe 2, and really start to embrace these things on a daily basis. And before you know it, you're going to be creating these as new, healthier subconscious habits that you don't have to think about quite as much. The true Powerback lesson here today is knowing that you have so much more control than you have given yourself permission to have, and that you can literally change the outcome of whatever's going on right now. You can literally call in opportunities that are absolutely mind-blowing. And you can truly have the lifestyle and the business that you keep vision boarding about, that you keep daydreaming about. That shit can actually be your reality. And all because you were willing to work on what's going on in your mind and how you're responding to things in your world. All right, my friends, final call, final call for the Mindfuckery Workshop. Registration closes on the 21st. If you want to learn how to shift what's going on in your mind, take control back over, take power back of your thoughts and your actions, go to LauraAura.com/learn and register today. Next week's episode is about building confidence. Erica Kramer goes by the Queen of Confidence. This is a powerhouse fucking conversation that you're not going to want to miss. Make sure you hit subscribe on the podcast so that you get first notifications when new episodes air. And as always, until I see you next time, stay gutsy.